June 15, 1944, midnight over Yawata, Kyushu. The air vibrates with a low, ominous rumble like thunder rolling in from the Pacific. Searchlights stab upward, frantic beams slicing through the inky blackness as anti-aircraft guns cough to life below. High above, at 25,000 feet, the silver behemoths glide in formation. Boeing B-29 Superfortresses, their four Wright R-3350 engines churning the thin air, wings spanning wider than a city block. Inside the lead bomber, Dauntless Dottie, pilot Major General Kenneth B. Wolfe grips the yoke, his crew sweating in pressurized cabins against the freezing void. Bomb sights lock on the Imperial Iron and Steel Works, a sprawling industrial heart pumping out the metal for Japan's war machine. The bay doors creak open. Clusters of 500-pound high explosives tumble earthward, whistling through the night. Down below, in the fortified bunkers of Tokyo's Imperial General Headquarters, alarms blare. Lieutenant General Masakazu Kawabe, commander of the Air General Army, slams his fist on the map table as reports flood in over crackling radios. American ghosts in the sky, one aide mutters, eyes wide. Kawabe sneers, his mustache twitching in disdain. These so-called superfortresses, bah. They fly too high for our interceptors to touch, like cowards hiding in the clouds. Look at the damage, scattered hits nothing more than pinpricks on Yawata's hide. He paces, uniform crisp under the dim lamps, the room thick with cigarette smoke and the metallic tang of tension. Officers nod in agreement, their laughter echoing off concrete walls. Colonel Hiroshi Matsuda, a veteran of the China campaigns, chuckles outright. The Yankees boast of their new wonder plane, but what do they achieve? A few craters in the dirt. Our Zero fighters will swat them like flies if they dare descend. You can almost smell the arrogance in that room, thick as the humidity of a Tokyo summer. The B-29's had been whispered about in intelligence briefs. Massive bombers born from America's industrial womb, designed to strike from bases in distant China. But to the Japanese high command, they seemed a joke. Emperor Hirohito's War Council dismissed early reconnaissance photos from captured pilots. Too big to fly properly, scoffed Admiral Sumu Toyota. Engine troubles, unreliable, they'll crash before they bomb us. And indeed, that first raid was a fumbling debut. Of the 75 B-29's that staggered over the target after refueling in Chengdu, only 47 dropped their payloads accurately. Fires flickered briefly at Yawata, but the steel mills roared back to life within days. Japanese newspapers, under strict censorship, spun tales of heroic defenses repelling the invaders. Civilians in Tokyo went about their rationed lives, oblivious, while propaganda posters depicted samurai warriors piercing American planes with spears. But peel back the bravado and cracks appear. In private, Kawabe pores over reports of the B-29 specs. Pressurized cabins allowing crews to bomb from altitudes where Japanese Nakajima Ki-44 interceptors gasped for air. Radar-guided bomb sites that promised precision death from afar. Yet the raids that followed were erratic, hampered by the Himalayas' treacherous hump supply route from India. On August 10th, another strike on Nagasaki's shipyards, minimal damage, high American losses to mechanical failures. See, Matsuda would say in staff meetings pouring sake, their machines betray them. We mock these flying fortresses because they are fortresses of failure. The mockery spread like wildfire through the ranks. In officers' clubs from Manila to Tokyo, tales circulated of B-29's limping home, engines aflame from overheating radials. Japanese pilots, those who survived encounters, reported the bomber's defensive 50 caliber turrets spitting fire. But at such heights, pursuits were futile. They run like scared rabbits, one ace bragged over radio intercepts. Prime Minister Hideki Tojo, before his fall in July, even joked in cabinet sessions. The Americans build giants, but giants fall hard. Intelligence from neutral sources painted a picture of Boeing's Wichita plants, churning out these beasts at breakneck speed. Yet operational teething pains, icing issues, fire-prone engines, fueled the derision. Why fear a weapon that devours its own? As summer bled into autumn, more raids came. September 8th, Anshan Steel Works in Manchuria hit again, but scattered bombs missed key furnaces. LeMay's predecessor, Brigadier General Haywood S. Hansel Jr., stuck to doctrine. Daylight, high-altitude precision strikes on industry. Results paltry. Japanese production dipped but not broke. In war rooms, the laughter grew bolder. Let them come, Kawabe declared in a November briefing. Our homeland is inviolable. Their high-flying cowardice will achieve nothing. Yet whispers of unease crept in. Civilians drilled for air raids, blackouts enforced, but the threat felt distant, abstract. Children in schools drew cartoons of bloated American planes tumbling from the sky. Factories hummed on, workers oblivious to the gathering storm. But across the Pacific, in the Mariana Islands freshly wrested from Japanese control, airfields lengthened under American bulldozers. Tinian, Guam, Saipan, launch pads for a new phase. Hansel's B-29's began operating from there in November, shortening supply lines, increasing sortie rates. Still, the initial forays floundered. A December 3rd raid on Tokyo's Musashino aircraft plant. Heavy clouds, jet streams scattering bombs wide. Only 24 of 86 planes hit the target. Japanese flak crews cheered as stragglers veered off, smoke trailing. Ineffective, and the reports read. Mockery turned to confidence. The B-29 is a paper tiger, Admiral Toyota proclaimed. But then, a shift. January 1945. Washington, frustrated with Hansel's results, summons a bulldog from Europe. Major General Curtis LeMay, stocky, cigar-chomping, eyes like steel, lands in Guam, taking command of B-29 Bomber Command. His reputation precedes him. Architect of devastating raids over Germany, unflinching in the face of losses. Arnold's orders burn in his pocket. Get results or else. LeMay studies the failures, chain-smoking in his Quonset hut, maps sprawled under harsh lights. High-altitude precision, useless against Japan's dispersed cottage industries, hidden in wooden neighborhoods. Winds aloft scatter payloads. Japanese radar and fighters, though depleted, still bite. He hatches a plan, radical, ruthless. Strip the B-29's of guns, save the tail turret. Fly low at night, load with incendiaries, not explosives. Target not factories, but cities themselves, burn them out. In Tokyo, the high command remains blissfully ignorant, their sneers unbroken. But as LeMay's crews train in secret, practicing low-level drops over Pacific atolls, the laughter echoes hollow. What if the giants descend? What if the cowards come close? The first test looms. A small raid on February 25th, still high but with firebombs. Tokyo burns a square mile. Kawabe dismisses it. A fluke. But LeMay smells blood. He plans bigger, much bigger, and on March 9th, the skies will scream. March 9th, 1945, 5:34 p.m. Northfield, Tinian Island, Mariana Chain. The sun bleeds red into the Pacific as 334 silver B-29's, stripped of nearly every defensive gun, roar down the coral-paved runways in a relentless procession. Each Superfortress carries a belly full of something new. M69 napalm incendiaries. Small hexagonal bomblets packed with jellied gasoline that burst into sticky, 1-800-degree fire on impact. Crews call them fire sticks. Tonight they will drop over 1,665 tons of them. In the lead plane, straight flush, Major Charles Sweeney taxis into position, his co-pilot checking the altimeter one last time. No pressurized comfort tonight, windows cracked open, oxygen masks dangling. They will bomb from 5,000 to 9,000 feet. Low enough to smell the smoke, low enough for every Japanese gun to reach them. LeMay's order is stark, delivered in that gravel voice. You're going in low. You're going in at night. You're going to burn the place down. Back in Tokyo, the city settles into an uneasy dusk. Over 1 million people cram into the wooden labyrinth of Asakusa, Honjo, Fukagawa. Districts of paper houses, narrow alleys, and small family workshops that feed the war machine. Civilians have grown accustomed to the distant drone of high-flying B-29's that drop nothing or miss everything. Air raid drills are routine, almost ritual. Children still play in the streets. Mothers cook meager rations over charcoal braziers. The blackout curtains are drawn, but the threat feels far away. At 12:08 a.m., March 10th, the first Pathfinder aircraft, straight flush, releases green marker flares over the target area, the densely packed Shitamachi Low City east of the Sumida River. The flares bloom like sickly fireworks, painting the rooftops emerald. Moments later, the main force arrives in streams of three-plane formations, staggered to avoid collision in the dark. No tight combat boxes, no fighter escort, just a river of bombers flowing southeast to northwest, each one dumping its load in a concentrated rectangle 2 miles by 1. The first clusters hit, a soft, almost gentle pop as the M69 scatter. Then the screams begin. Wooden beams ignite instantly to Tommy Matt's flare. Paper screens vanish in a whoosh of orange. The fire leaps from house to house faster than a man can run. Wind, unseasonably strong 28 knots, fans the blaze into a living thing. It roars down alleys, sucks oxygen from shelters, melts glass, turns steel bicycle frames into twisted slag. People burst from doorways only to find the street itself ablaze, walls of flame closing like jaws. In the Imperial General Headquarters, the first frantic telephone calls crackle through. Lieutenant General Kawabe is pulled from his cot. An aide, face pale, stammers, "The eastern wards are burning everywhere." Kawabe rushes to the map room, still in his robe. The situation map is already being redrawn in red crayon, entire districts marked as lost. He stares, mouth open, as reports pour in. Ueno Station engulfed, the Asakusa Cannon Temple ringed by fire, the river bridges jammed with burning people trying to reach the water. You can almost hear it. The roar isn't just the flames. It's the city itself dying. The firestorm creates its own wind. A 40-knot hurricane of superheated air pulling more victims back into the inferno. Mothers clutch children only to watch their hair ignite. Men in civil defense helmets collapse as their lungs sear shut. The temperature in the streets climbs past 1,000 degrees Celsius. Asphalt bubbles, rivers boil. Bodies pile so thick in the Sumida that the current stops. By 4 a.m., the main force has turned for home. 279 B-29's made it over the target. Only 14 are lost, mostly to updrafts flipping them or flak tearing engines apart. A price LeMay accepts without blinking. Dawn reveals a moonscape. 16 square miles of Tokyo reduced to smoking ash. Estimates later place the dead between 80,000 and 130,000 in a single night, more than either atomic bomb would claim. Bodies lie in grotesque poses, some sitting upright as if praying, frozen by heat, others fused to the pavement, countless more simply gone, vaporized in the core of the storm. The stench of charred flesh drifts for weeks. In the war room, Kawabe stands motionless. The laughter is dead, the sneers are dead. Colonel Matsuda, who once mocked the cowardly high flyers, now stares at the casualty lists, hands trembling. Admiral Toyoda's face is gray. They had believed altitude meant safety. They had believed their wooden city was too dispersed to burn efficiently. They had believed the B-29 was a bluff. LeMay had proven them catastrophically wrong, and he isn't finished. Within 48 hours, Nagoya is hit, then Osaka, Kobe, Yokohama. One after another, Japan's great cities are turned into glowing charcoal briquettes. The pattern is mercilessly consistent. Low by night with fire. The high command scrambles to evacuate factories, disperse machine tools. But the workers, women and children included, remain in the target zones. There's nowhere else to go. Back on Tinian, LeMay paces the flight line, cigar clamped tight. Crews return hollow-eyed, uniforms reeking of smoke even at altitude. Some vomit when they describe the orange glow visible for 150 miles. Others simply stare at nothing. Yet the mission reports are clear. Production plummets. Morale collapses. The illusion of an impregnable homeland shatters. In Tokyo's blackened ruins, survivors crawl from shelters to find their entire world erased. A mother searches for her daughter among piles of calcified remains. An old man kneels beside what used to be his shop, now a pile of white ash. The emperor's subjects, once told their spirit was unbreakable, now understand something colder. Their cities can burn. And the Americans have the match. The mocking voices in the war rooms have gone silent. But the bombers keep coming. March 19th, 1945, Imperial Palace, Tokyo. Dawn filters through the smoke haze that still hangs low over the capital like a funeral shroud. Emperor Hirohito, pale and drawn, stands at the window of his private quarters, gazing out at what remains of the eastern districts. The air smells of wet ash and charred wood. Yesterday's newspapers, those still printed, are forbidden to mention the true scale of the March 10th firestorm. Official communiques speak of minor incendiary damage and heroic firefighting efforts, but the emperor knows. His Privy Seal, Marquis Kido Koichi, has quietly briefed him with the unvarnished truth. Perhaps 100,000 dead in one night. More than the Great Kanto earthquake of 1923, in a single breath of fire. In the adjacent war room, the atmosphere has changed. The same officers who once laughed over Osaka now speak in low, clipped tones. Lieutenant General Kawabe sits hunched over a new map, red ink bleeding across what used to be thriving neighborhoods. Colonel Matsuda, whose voice used to boom with derision, now barely whispers casualty figures. Admiral Toyoda's hands tremble as he lights another cigarette. The B-29 has been stripped of its mocking nicknames. No more flying coffins or American paper dragons. It is simply the enemy bomber, and it keeps coming. Nagoya falls on the night of March 11th. 307 Superfortresses drop 950 tons of incendiaries. The Mitsubishi aircraft plant, heart of Japan's zero production, is gutted. Factories that once turned out fighters now burn like matchboxes. Then Osaka, March 13 to 14. 274 planes, 1733 tons. The industrial districts along the Yodo River become a sea of flame. Kobe follows on March 16-17, Yokohama on May 29th. One after another, the great cities of the home islands are erased in fire. By the end of March, Japan has lost over 70 square miles of urban area, equivalent to the entire city of Detroit reduced to ash. LeMay's crews fly almost every clear night. They fly low, fast, and merciless. The bombers are lighter now, faster, carrying even more fire. Defensive armament is reduced to a single tail gunner. Loss rates drop, sortie rates climb. On Tinian, mechanics work around the clock, engines still hot from the previous mission. Crews return with faces blackened by soot, eyes red from smoke and exhaustion. Some refuse to look at the strike photos. Others cannot stop staring. The glow of burning cities is visible from 200 miles out, a dull orange bruise on the horizon that grows brighter with each passing night. In the Japanese high command, the psychological fracture deepens. Intelligence officers sift through survivor accounts and intercepted American radio chatter. They learn the terrifying truth. The Americans have abandoned precision bombing entirely. The target is no longer industry alone. The target is the people. The wooden houses, the crowded streets, the spirit of resistance itself. Kawabe, once so certain, now faces the emperor in private audiences. He admits the interceptors, Kai-44s, Kai-84s, even the new N1K2J Shidenkai, cannot climb fast enough or sustain altitude to engage the low-flying streams effectively at night. Radar is primitive. Night fighters are few. Flak is dense but inaccurate against fast-moving targets at 7,000 feet. The B-29, once dismissed as a lumbering giant, has become an untouchable reaper. The Emperor listens in silence. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he asks the question no one wants to answer. How long can we endure this? No one answers. Across the home islands, civilians begin to understand what the High Command will not yet admit. In the surviving districts of Tokyo, people sleep in subway tunnels, in parks, in makeshift shelters dug into hillsides. Mothers carry children on their backs during the day, ready to flee at the first siren. The sound of engines overhead, once distant and almost academic, now sends entire neighborhoods into panicked flight. The word B-san, Mr. B, enters everyday speech, spoken in hushed dread. Yet the fire raids continue. April brings more, May brings worse. On May 23-24, Tokyo is hit again. Almost the entire remaining downtown area incinerated in a single night. The Imperial Palace itself is scorched. Parts of the outer grounds catch fire. Hirohito walks among the blackened trees the next morning, face unreadable, aides trailing behind in stunned silence. LeMay, back on Guam, receives the photos and casualty estimates without expression. He knows the numbers are staggering. He also knows they are working. Japanese aircraft production collapses, steel output plummets. Workers are dead, factories are gone. Supply lines are severed by the constant threat of fire. The war machine is being burned out from the inside. In late May, a new dimension emerges. B-29's begin mining Japanese coastal waters, dropping thousands of magnetic and acoustic mines that choke shipping lanes. The Shimonoseki Strait, vital artery to the Sea of Japan, becomes a graveyard for freighters. Food shortages deepen, rice rations are cut again. Starvation begins to creep into the cities that fire has spared. The High Command's last illusions are dying. Kawabe, in a private memo to the war minister, writes words he never thought he would. The continued existence of the homeland is in grave doubt. Toyota, once so scornful, now speaks openly in staff meetings of seeking terms, any terms, to end the slaughter. The Mockery is gone, in its place dread. And still the bombers come. Each night the horizon glows. Each dawn the ashes settle. Japan is learning, in the most brutal way possible, that altitude was never the barrier. The barrier was arrogance, and now it has burned away. July 1945. The summer heat presses down on Tokyo like a physical weight, but the city no longer feels the sun the same way. What remains of its heart is a patchwork of blackened lots, skeletal concrete frames, and temporary barracks thrown up amid the ruins. The fire raids have slowed, not from mercy, but from necessity. There are simply fewer large flammable targets left. What LeMay cannot burn with incendiaries, he begins to starve with mines and submarine blockade. Rice ships from Korea and Manchuria lie at the bottom of the inland sea. Rations drop to starvation levels. Children's legs swell with beriberi. The mocking confidence of spring is now a distant memory. In the Imperial Palace's underground shelter, the air is thick with damp concrete and the faint metallic taste of fear. Emperor Hirohito, thinner now, his voice quieter than it has ever been, convenes the Supreme War Leadership Council, known as the Big Six. Prime Minister Kentaro Suzuki sits at one end of the long table, face carved from exhaustion. Foreign Minister Shigenori Togo, the only civilian among military hardliners, clutches a sheaf of cables from neutral capitals. War Minister Korichika Anami, rigid in his uniform, stares straight ahead. Army Chief of Staff Yoshijiro Umezu and Navy Chief Suomu Toyota complete the circle. For the first time, the Emperor does not merely listen. He speaks, in a tone so soft it barely carries across the table. Hirohito asks the question that has haunted every blackened street and every grieving family. Is there no way to end this suffering? Silence. Heavy, absolute. Anami opens his mouth to speak of final decisive battle, of 100 million dying in defense of the sacred soil, of Ketsugo, the plan to turn the home islands into a graveyard for the invaders. But the words die on his tongue. He has seen the photographs. He has walked through the ashen districts where once proud divisions drilled. The B-29 has made Ketsugo a fantasy. Togo clears his throat. He speaks of the Potsdam Declaration, issued July 26th by Truman, Churchill, and Chiang Kai-shek. It demands unconditional surrender. It promises no enslavement, no destruction of the nation, yet it is silent on the fate of the emperor. To the military men, that silence is poison. To Togo, it is the narrowest crack of light. The debate that follows is bitter, circular, exhausting. Hours pass, voices rise, then fall into hoarse whispers. Anami insists Japan can still fight on. Umezu warns that surrender would destroy the kokutai, the national essence. But each argument rings hollow against the memory of March 10th, of the orange sky that swallowed 100,000 lives in hours. Hirohito listens, then at last he speaks again. I have decided, he says, to endure the unendurable. The room stops breathing. He continues, voice steady now. I cannot bear to see my people suffer any longer. The time has come to accept the terms of the Potsdam Declaration and to save the nation. It is not a suggestion. It is imperial will. Anami's face collapses. Toyota looks down at his hands. The hardliners have lost not to logic, not to diplomacy, but to the unrelenting fire that has already consumed so much. August 6 dawns clear over Hiroshima. At 8:15 a.m., the Enola Gay releases Little Boy, a single flash, a mushroom cloud. 80,000 gone in seconds. Yet even this horror is not the final stroke that breaks the deadlock. The military still argues for one more chance, one more battle. August 9th, Nagasaki. Another flash, another city erased. And on the same day, Soviet tanks roll across Manchuria, smashing the Kwantung army in hours. The cabinet meets again. Deadlock. Anami still refuses. Suzuki calls for another imperial conference. Midnight, August 9th at 10. The emperor is summoned once more to the shelter. He enters, small in his white uniform, yet somehow larger than the room. He speaks plainly without ornament. I have heard the opinions of everyone, but my own opinion has not changed. I do not think it is possible to continue the war any longer. I wish that you, my ministers of state, will accept my wishes. No one speaks against the emperor's will. Not this time. August 14th. The cabinet votes unanimously to accept the Potsdam terms, with the sole condition that the imperial institution be preserved. Washington replies the next day. The emperor will remain, but subject to the supreme commander of the Allied powers. August 15th, 1945 noon. Radio Tokyo. A scratchy recording begins. The voice of Hirohito, never before heard by the common people, fills every home, every factory, every shelter. We have resolved to pave the way for a grand peace for all the generations to come by enduring the unendurable and suffering what is insufferable. The nation listens in stunned silence. Many weep. Many do not understand the ancient court language, but they understand one thing. The war is over. In the ashes of Tokyo, survivors look up at the empty sky. No more engines, no more fire, only quiet. On Tinian, LeMay receives the news in his Quonset hut. He reads the teletype, sets the paper down, and lights another cigar. He says nothing, there is nothing left to say. The B-29 Superfortress, once mocked, once dismissed as a high-flying coward, had done what no army, no navy, no invasion could yet accomplish. It had forced Japan to look into the fire and choose to step back. From the war rooms where laughter once echoed, to the burning streets where no one laughed, to this final exhausted silence. The mocking had ended. The fire had won. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us create more videos like this. Thanks for watching.